When we think of World War II, the images that come to mind are often of soldiers storming beaches, generals plotting strategies, and factories roaring with production. But behind the familiar images is a hidden army, women whose work, courage, and determination changed the outcome of the war. And yet, many of their names never made it into the history books. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on the untold stories of women who altered the course of the Second World War, from secret codebreakers to fearless pilots, from frontline nurses to resistance fighters. These are not just side notes in history. These are the stories of the women without whom victory might have been impossible. Let's start in a quiet estate in Buckinghamshire, England. Bletchley Park. Imagine walking into a grand old mansion, and instead of fine dinners and dances, you find rows of women hunched over strange machines, deciphering enemy communications. Among them was a young woman named Mavis Batey, barely in her 20s. She cracked an Italian naval code that directly led to the British victory at the Battle of Matapan. Her skill also helped break messages between Hitler and Mussolini, a breakthrough that gave the Allies a critical edge. Mavis wasn't holding a rifle, but she was dismantling enemy plans before they could even be carried out, and she wasn't alone. Thousands of women worked in signals intelligence, intercepting, translating, and decoding messages, their identities kept secret for decades. The public never knew, and in some cases, even their own families didn't know, that they had been the silent hunters of enemy secrets. Across the Atlantic, in the United States, another group of women was taking to the skies. They were called the Women Air Force Service Pilots, the WASPs. Picture this: female pilots ferrying fighter planes and bombers across the country, freeing up male pilots for combat missions. They flew every kind of aircraft the military had, often without weapons, often without recognition, and always under the looming threat of mechanical failure or enemy sabotage. One WASP, Gertrude Tommy Tompkins, took off in a P-51 Mustang in 1944 and vanished without a trace. To this day, her disappearance remains one of the great aviation mysteries of the war. The WASPs were not considered official military members at the time, so when they died in service, the government did not pay to bring their bodies home. Their fellow pilots pooled their own money to ensure fallen sisters received proper burials. That is the kind of loyalty and courage that never makes the headlines. Then there were the women whose battlegrounds were behind enemy lines. In France, Nancy Wake, nicknamed the White Mouse by the Gestapo, led sabotage missions, coordinated supply drops, and even commanded hundreds of resistance fighters. She was so effective that she topped the Gestapo's most wanted list, with the price on her head so large it could have bought a small estate. Once, when caught in a firefight, she allegedly killed a sentry with her bare hands to avoid blowing her team's cover. After the war, she was awarded medals from multiple countries, yet her name remained far less known than the male commanders she outwitted. Meanwhile, in the Soviet Union, a young woman named Lyudmila Pavlichenko was rewriting the definition of sniper. With 309 confirmed kills, she was feared across the Eastern Front. She was so deadly that the Germans tried to bribe her through loudspeaker announcements, promising her safety and luxury if she defected. She refused. Later she toured the United States to rally support for the Soviet war effort, meeting President Franklin D. Roosevelt and First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, a meeting where she famously challenged the American press for asking about her makeup instead of her marksmanship. Of course, the work wasn't always in the shadows or on the front lines. Sometimes, it was in hospitals so close to battle that the walls shook from artillery. Nurses like Vivian Bullwinkle in the Pacific Theater faced unimaginable horrors. After surviving the sinking of her ship, she was captured by the Japanese, and after the war, she testified about the atrocities she had witnessed. Testimony that became critical evidence in war crime trials. She didn't just save lives during the war. She helped ensure justice afterward. And then there's the quiet heroism of women like Clara Leach Adams Zender, who worked in logistics and planning, making sure troops had the supplies they needed to keep moving. Wars are not just won by the bullets fired, but by the food delivered, the vehicles repaired, and the endless chain of supplies that keeps an army alive. In many cases, women were the unseen architects of that chain. But perhaps one of the most remarkable untold stories belongs to Noor Inayat Khan. Born in Moscow, raised in Paris, and of Indian royal descent, she became a British spy in Nazi-occupied France, operating as a wireless operator, the most dangerous job in the French resistance. She sent messages under constant threat of detection. The average life expectancy for someone in her position was just 6 weeks. She lasted over 3 months before being betrayed and captured. Even under torture, she revealed nothing. Noor was executed at Dachau in 1944. Her last word, according to witnesses, was freedom. These women, and thousands more like them, were part of a war machine that extended far beyond the battlefields we see in movies. They were mathematicians, pilots, saboteurs, medics, engineers, factory workers, and leaders. Some fought with weapons. Others fought with ideas, numbers, and unbreakable will. Many came home to no parades, no medals, and no place in the history books. And yet, their fingerprints are all over the victories we remember. Without them, encrypted codes might never have been cracked, planes might never have reached the front, resistance cells might have been crushed before they could act, soldiers might have gone without the supplies that kept them alive. The irony is that these women were often told their work was temporary, that when the war was over, they would return to normal life, and many did, quietly resuming roles as wives, mothers, and workers in a society that still didn't fully value their contributions. Some spoke of their experiences decades later. Others took their secrets to the grave. So, why tell their stories now? Because history is more than the names carved in marble. It's the human stories, the forgotten, the hidden, the untold, that give us the full picture of what it took to survive and to win. These women deserve more than a footnote. They deserve to be remembered as the game changers they were. The next time you think of World War II, picture not just the soldiers in uniform, but the young woman at Bletchley Park deciphering an enemy message that could save thousands of lives. Picture the pilot guiding a bomber through bad weather without radar. Picture the resistance fighter cycling through the countryside with coded messages hidden in the handlebars. Picture the nurse holding the hand of a wounded soldier, whispering that help is coming. Because in the end, victory wasn't just won by those who stormed the beaches. It was won by those who cracked the codes, ferried the planes, smuggled the messages, and refused to be broken, even in the darkest of times. And those women, the ones who changed the outcome of World War II, are no longer untold, and they are no longer unknown.